بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له كيف الكيف فلا كيف أين العين فلا أين ولا جسم ولا صورة ولا شكل ولا أعضاء له وأشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وعظيمنا وشيخنا وإمامنا وقائدنا وقرة أعيننا محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وعلى أصحابه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين ثم أقول أما بعد الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله والله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله والله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله والله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد. Brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. All praises are for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of the universe, the sustainer, the creator, the most powerful, the all-hearing, the all-seeing, the all-knowing. Praise and salutations and endless blessings upon the best of creation, the most beloved of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the first, the last, none other than our noble messenger and prophet, Sayyiduna wa Nabiyuna Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa baraka wa sallam. Upon his pure family, upon his righteous companions and all those who follow their path till the day of judgment. Ameen. Firstly, I would like to wish each and every single one of you Eid Mubarak on behalf of myself, Hamza Hassan, on behalf of Manchester Central Mosque. It's the day of Eid today. It's a day of joy. It's a day of celebration. And it's a day of unity and togetherness. And it's a day in which the whole Ummah comes together under one flag for one reason, one objective only. We are saying Allahu Akbar, and we will continue to say this for the days in which it's necessary upon us. Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, walillahi alhamd. On a day of celebration, we are celebrating by mentioning the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is a statement of intent. It's like when you have a newborn baby, and there's an announcement, or if there's any challenge that or any problem a person is facing, we are very clearly stating today that Allah is greater than anything. However big one's problem may be, however significant one's problem may be, however delicate and sensitive one's issues or difficulties or challenges may be, today we are announcing that Allahu Akbar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is greater than anything, anyone and everything. And this celebration today is a celebration in which we are, in essence, we are celebrating the legacy of Sayyiduna Ibrahim alayhi salam. So it's a very important need for us to understand why is it that we are celebrating the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and what are the reasons for us to be reading these takbirs. We need to understand the meaning, and whenever we feel any challenges or we feel weak, it's very important to have this spiritual attainment that we need to understand that nothing can challenge Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we are going through challenges and we are feeling weak, we are feeling lonely, we are feeling as though we are on our own, and we feel as though we have no one to turn to, and we feel as though that what the uphill challenge which is in front of us, it seems practically impossible. At them times, at those difficult times, it's necessary for us to remember and understand that nothing can challenge the power, the majesty and the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this concept of celebration is in the nature of certain things. This is the way of the prophets. After completion of a season of worship or any positive thinking, or once we have made the correct intentions, we celebrate. But today's celebration is what I want to focus on today in my in today's Friday reminder, that how the legacy of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam has lived until today, despite it being so far after. And today Allah has still commanded us for centuries and centuries and year after year, the Muslim population, and rather I should say the Abrahamic faiths in general, they actually speak about Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. They revive, they revise, they study, they mention, and they celebrate the legacy of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He loves to see this concept of togetherness and unity on this day of celebration. And that's why we come together to the masajid, to each other's houses. And I think at this point, it's very, very, very important for me to mention that certain precautionary measures have been taken in light of the coronavirus, which we as a masjid have always followed the governmental guidelines and all precautionary measures that have been recommended and told to be implemented by them. And just late evening at approximately 9:22 p.m. we heard the announcement in which we were told that there are certain lockdown measures which have come into implementation in certain areas of Yorkshire and Greater Manchester and other areas. Now, on behalf of Manchester Central Mosque, I advise each and every single person that yes, despite the fact that you can come to the masjid for the Jum'ah prayer, please do follow the precautionary measures which we have mentioned, number one. Number two, that yes, it's a day of Eid, but try to change our traditional cultural practices in terms of hugging one another, kissing one another, shaking hands with one another, being in close proximity with one another. And the third thing, which is the most important thing I find, is that we have been told that going to one another's house inside is something which is not allowed. So please do act upon this. Stay safe, protect yourselves, and save lives. This is for our own benefit and not the benefit of anyone else. So please do ensure that you are playing a role in supporting the NHS, supporting one another, saving lives. And these guidelines which we have been given, it's important for us to take them seriously and act upon them. However difficult it may seem, it's for our own benefit. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of Eid, He loves the concept of unity and togetherness. And we together, we celebrate and we do the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the angels witness the place of Eid Salah. When we read Eid Salah, that place is actually witnessed by the angels. It's filled with angels, and they are showering the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon the congregation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, "Inna hazihi ummatukum ummatan wahida wa ana rabbukum fa'budun." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that indeed your nation is one nation and I am your Lord, so worship me. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam within his life, and this is the reminder today, this is the legacy of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, which I wanted to touch upon, is that how he dedicated his life, his submission, the submission of his life was for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we know from the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that the one who is challenged the most by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are those who are most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's a Quranic principle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not test his abd, his slave, more than he can cope with. And whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He tests you with, the more beloved you are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more difficulties one will face. And this is in order to really evaluate the intensity of your iman and to reflect upon your life. So today is a day in which the entire ummah, 1/5 of the population, is getting together, and we are reviewing, we are celebrating a legacy. So this shows that 1/5 of the population are all coming together, practicing certain rituals, the sacrifice, the udhiyah and other things. There must be a very important and significant need for us to actually ponder and contemplate and reflect that legacy and review that legacy of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. Now every civilization has some kind of festivals. You have cultural days, you have other festivals, you have Independence Days, and you have other Christmas and other things as well, where the entire nation comes together and celebrates. This is a day on which the 1/5 of the Muslim population comes together, and when you look at these things, that every type of celebration or festival or a day in which people come together and celebrate these cultural days and festivals, they have some sort of affiliation to what we would call a major historical event, or there will be some significance or some historical reasoning to why they are celebrating, and that is part of the identity of that nation or that group of people. And it's the same with Islam, that today we are celebrating, and it's a day for us to be happy, it's a day for us to celebrate, that normally we would eat well, and even today we will eat well, we will go out and meet our families and friends within the measures that we have been told to follow, not within houses but rather in open spaces, and all the other guidelines which have been given, we will act upon that. But it's the very important question is that why are we doing this? What is the need for us to get together and to celebrate the legacy of someone who lived so long ago? And that's the most important understanding we need to try to develop on and understand in today's short reminder. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tested Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, Khalilullah, the intimate friend of God, in a way in which no other person had been tested. And when he was tested in such a in-depth manner, he fulfilled all of the trials and difficulties and tests he was given. He passed all of them, which were what we would call flying colors, without any show of weakness, without any giving up, but rather having full faith, tawakkul and reliance upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have heard all about those challenges that he faced time and time again. Today's reminder or khutbah is really about what those challenges of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, what do they mean to me? What do they mean to you? And it's not just to remind ourselves about how incredible he was, because he is Khalilullah, the intimate friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's no doubt about how amazing of a prophet he was, the greatest prophet after Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, but how we can link those challenges to our lives and benefit from them. Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was a young man, a young man who challenged all of the society at a very young age. And young people, when they generally grow up, we grow up in what we call this method of acceptance, that we want to fit into the crowd which is around us. We are influenced by our surroundings. We want to dress, we want to speak, we want to walk, we want to talk, we want to navigate, we want to do things which the people around us are doing, so that we are accepted within them. But if you stick out, we think that if we stick out and we do something which is abnormal to the society we are living within, people will make fun of us, and people, when they make fun of us, it will be difficult for us. Rather than standing on our own 2 feet, we hide behind a crowd. And generally our younger people, we find it's within colleges, schools and universities, that people, they dress how their friends dress, they listen to the music which their friends listen to, and this is what is called peer pressure and a mode of acceptance. But at a very young age, Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he sees that within society those actions and those practices are taking place which make no logical or intellectual sense, and despite being a very young child, his intellectual capacity was as such that he was understanding that what is taking place within society is abnormal, is illogical, is against nature. Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, he stood up against the whole of the society, despite the fact he was later then thrown into fire and he had to go through personal pain, physical pain. He was thrown into a social fire to begin with. Many are leaving Islam and feeling apologetic in today's day and age. They are feeling as though that we don't fit within society, or they're feeling very apologetic for some of the things within society, and they take a step back. But no, the lesson which we learn from Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, that people choose not to stand up, that in today's day and age when people choose not to stand up for their faith, they rather move back. What we are celebrating today is that this man's unflinching commitment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we need to implement this within our lives as well. That despite difficult times, despite how old society may seem, we stay steadfast and we have true submission in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and our life and our salah and everything is only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake. But then these trials, they don't come to an end, they continue. He gets married, he is told to leave his wife and a baby in the middle of a desert. We have not really been commanded to do this. And one of the many lessons is Allah often creates situations which may seem very impossible for you to come across. Now imagine this, that you are ordered to send your wife and your young child who you have been praying for, that Rabbi habli minas salihin, for many years. And when you are given a child, it's a time to enjoy life with your spouse and your child, and you are ordered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to leave them in the middle of a desert, which is it's a deserted area, unpopulated area, in which there's no fridges, there's no food, there's no water, there's no physical signs of any survival tools. But Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, he despite all of these conditions, he doesn't complain, but rather he during this trial, it's not a time for him to lose hope, but rather he remains reliant upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what we learn from here are two things. Number one, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will often create certain situations and certain settings which may seem very illogical to us. It may be beyond our intellectual understanding. And that situation, it might be so hard and difficult for us, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through this example of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, has clearly stated and clearly shown us that during a difficult time, and when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has created for you a situation, and you remain reliant and steadfast upon Islam and upon the teachings of Islam, and have true faith and reliance upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will give you the ajr for that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will give you the reward for that. So trials are not a time when a person should lose hope. And many people are suffering trials under the COVID-19 situation. Many people have become jobless. Many people have become homeless. We see a rise in domestic violence. We see a rise in many other problems. And many people have lost their jobs. But what we find is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has very clearly stated that during times of trial, you don't lose hope, but rather you remain steadfast and reliant upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then look at this journey of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. He comes back and he sees that he is slaughtering his child in his dream. And the dream of a prophet is revelation. So he was being given divine revelation to sacrifice his child. And we are celebrating that Allah gave his slave the most difficult of tests, but Allah never let him go. And that's a summary of what we are celebrating today. Yes, we often speak about how difficult the test was and how Ibrahim alayhi salam, he remained steadfast and he acted upon that test. But what we are celebrating today is not only the fact that Ibrahim alayhi salam was given a test and he completed that test and he passed that test, but how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then never let Ibrahim alayhi salam go, but rather he made him one of the greatest individuals to ever live. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He helped him succeed in all of them. And this reminds us that despite whatever problems we are going through, despite any difficulties we are going through, when you remain tight and steadfast upon the path of Islam and the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will never let you go. Rather, He will have something better planned for you which will benefit you. And this is why at a time of happiness, at a time of celebration, we celebrate. What we do celebrate is that we have hope that Allah will never leave us alone. And we have utmost faith rather that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never leave us alone. So my brothers and sisters, the lesson for today is very simple. The reminder for today is very simple. That despite the difficulties you are going through, despite how the situation may seem, be loyal to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will help you survive all of those challenges. And the legacy of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, the lessons we learn from the legacy of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam are very clear. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tests those who are most beloved to Him to see the intensity of their iman. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us, we remain loyal to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never let us go. I pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He blesses each and every single one of us on this blessed day. Celebrate, and once again remember that please act upon the government guidelines. Don't go to each other's houses. And when you do go to the masjid to read Salatul Jumu'ah, make sure you take all precautionary measures which have been given, the guidelines which have been provided to you, and protect yourselves, stay safe and stay lives. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم وما علي إلا البلاغ.